So my name is Song. I've been in the tech industry for under a year. I'm working as a software developer for a small startup that does legal software for corporate law firms. I have a degree in mechanical engineering, and I worked a few years after school as a mechanical engineer, and then I moved into a role that was looking at sustainability projects for oil sands companies, and then I made a major pivot then into the arts world. I was working as a producer at a sound studio, working on advertising, film, and television. And then after that, I made another pivot back into sort of the engineering world, but more into business development and commercial type roles. More recently, I made the change into tech. So, I'd say all of my previous pivots before this one were more on a whim. It was more I wandered into these things. I knew I was unhappy and I wanted to do something different. And from this more recent pivot, I decided to kind of approach it in a more methodical way, figuring out what I wanted to do and kind of using that product mindset, which is something that's pretty common in the tech world, but essentially just doing this iterative, learning for as low cost as possible, just trying as many things as I could to answer the questions for myself, whether it could be something that gives me energy, that I could be good at, and then whether or not it could be sustainable for my lifestyle. Going through that process, I landed on wanting to do software development because I really enjoy building things. I'm really excited about learning things all the time and developing that superpower that you're I can make things and put them out in the world. In terms of getting prepped to actually make that pivot, once I made that decision, I feel that was the most challenging part for me. Making the decision of what do I want to do? If I'm not doing this, what else could I possibly be doing? I felt like I'd done everything. What else is there to do? And so going through that process was really helpful. And then I guess getting ready to become a software developer was learning to code, taking some courses, building projects, talking to people in that industry to really understand what the job is about and where I could focus my time and my energy. So I did some coding in university and I really liked it. It was one of my favorite classes. I really enjoyed it. But I didn't consider it as a career at all because I was imagining a software developer being someone who works in a basement and doesn't talk to people and, is the person that you call when your printer doesn't work. I just didn't have, sightline to people who were doing cool things. And, this is before Facebook, before social media, before all of those things. And so it was hard to see what the career could be. So the day in the life of a software developer, I'd say it changes depending on where we're at in the project. So if we're in the planning phase, product managers are figuring out what features we need to work on next, prioritizing that stuff. And so when something's ready to go, they have tickets and have the requirements for what needs to be done. As a software developer, it's reviewing those requirements, trying to understand what we're trying to build, talking with the product manager to make sure we understand what we're building and why we're building it that way. And then it's going through and putting together the documentation that describes what we're actually going to build. So this is before we start coding. The user experience is meant to look like this, and this is how I'm going to build it. And so you're thinking through your data structures, how information is going to be transferred from the front end to the back end, what tools you might use, those kinds of things, what pieces you need to build. And then you're writing that all out in a document so that you understand it, so other people understand it. And then, so that phase, it's a lot of talking with people, doing a lot of collaborating, and then you get into the coding part of it. And so those days are a little bit more focused on there's a little less discussion, but it's more on a maker schedule, I guess that's what it's called. But it's long periods of time where you're sitting and focusing on the coding problems. And so every day we have a stand-up meeting. So that's a 15-minute meeting that we have with the whole team where everyone talks about what they worked on yesterday, what they're planning on working on today, and any troubles that they're having, so that you can work through those. Like if you're stuck on something, somebody else can help you with it, can help you move past those things. And it's also helpful to know what other people are working on, because as you run into something, you're like, oh, that person worked on something just like that. I can go to them and talk to them about that. I feel like I get a lot of agency. Like with my organization, they're definitely like all about that. So I know when I get a ticket and it doesn't quite make sense, or it's not like I think that it might work out better a different way, then I just call our product manager and we have a discussion about it. It's like, okay, is this what you were thinking? Because this is how I'm interpreting this information, and I'm wondering about this situation. You know, we have a discussion about it. So moving into tech, I think there's a lot of that imposter syndrome. Like you feel like you're like, why would anyone like pay me to do something like this, right? Like I feel like I know nothing. But working through and talking to people in the industry and understanding, I guess, what people are looking for. And like, it's interesting talking with my boss. He talks about my strengths being like my ability to ask questions and understand the business and those kinds of things. And so like as a junior, I'm gonna be, like my coding skills aren't gonna be the strongest, right? Like it takes me longer than a more senior person. But what I bring to the table is, you know, my ability to like ask questions, collaborate, you know, work with other people. It's interesting because I feel like we get a lot of freedom to kind of think through how we're gonna do it. And then, you know, obviously in review processes and whatnot, like senior developers will have suggestions for how you can improve things. Like, oh, if you do it this way, it could be more efficient, or, you know, you can avoid this issue that you're having here, right? So, but I'm kind of responsible for my own work, like my own features. And so, I mean, that process is a lot of like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. This feels good. Like, yeah, I made this thing. It's great. And then you run into a problem, you're like, how am I gonna do this? And you're like, ugh, I have no idea how I'm gonna do this. You spend a lot of time Googling, looking at things, and then you're like, okay, I'm struggling with it. Now's the time to ask someone. Like, I've worked through it, I'm like, okay, I understand. These are the things I've tried. And then you can ask your senior developers, like, okay, well, this is what I'm stuck on, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. Like, how would you approach this? And a lot of times they can provide suggestions, and then you can work through it, and then, you know, and then you feel really good. You're like, I can't believe I did this. This is so good. And that up and down is pretty much daily. I really like that. Like, I like that aspect of like being a developer, that constant feedback, that we do code reviews, and that essentially I'm getting feedback every few days on my work, and I can improve it like quickly. Yeah. So that's interesting. I think it's hard, it's really hard to know in a 1-hour interview all of the things. And so I think a good approach really is to like talk to other people maybe before the interview. So if you're going through the process of understanding like what kinds of companies I want to work for, it's like, okay, well, what companies are out there? Maybe I can just start talking to people that work there. Like, I don't have an interview with these people, but maybe I can find somebody who has this job and I can talk to them about what their work environment is like. And in that type of situation, people can be more candid. Whereas an interview, it's almost like a date. Like, people aren't gonna be airing their dirty laundry. Whereas like, you're more likely to hear that if you're having like a casual coffee with somebody and no pressure, you know, like, what's it like to work here? Like, you know, I think that's probably gonna be more indicative of what's going on. You know, like, actions, I think, speak louder than words. So if you see that they already have women that work there, and they do have good work-life balance, you know, that they're not working every minute of every day. It's like a long-term process, getting to know companies before they even have openings. It's like, so this company sounds interesting, they don't have openings right now, but it doesn't mean you can't talk to people about it, because someday there's gonna be openings. And it might only be a couple months from now, right? And that'll be perfect. But, you know, who knows? It's important to get to know what's out there and the types of you know, people and companies that exist. like wanting to break into the tech industry, like I could see how people could be uncomfortable, like, or see how, you know, it's male dominated. Is there a place for me? I mean, seeking out other women, like seeing other women as role models, and then that's helpful. Like just being able to see that people exist in all forms, right? Like, and maybe if you can't see it, then maybe it's like looking for it and finding the right companies that support, you know, diversity and inclusion and all of those kinds of things, right? And then I think the other part is sometimes you just have to do things like be afraid or be uncomfortable and be the change that you want to see. And so like we can't have more women in tech if there aren't people willing to go in there before there's already women